Welcome back to the shop. So we're just over at the welding bench here, getting the H-pipe fabbed up for the 71 C-10. In the previous video you probably saw we had everything mocked up with these Dynamax offsets that we were using. I just fabbed up my crossover pipe. We're gonna run H-pipe. I don't really like the sound of X-pipes. Kind of gives it too much of a modern sound. We're going for classic. So what I did is I just got two short sections of 2-inch pipe, and I just drilled holes through the offsets, slipped them in, marked everything up, and then notched the pipe to fit. So there's multiple ways to do that. I find the easiest is to just drill your 2-inch hole in your pipes, get your crossover tube, get it fit in there, and then get everything lined up, and then you just take a Sharpie and run it around your pipe. Pull the pipe out and take your angle grinder with a zip disc. Just cut as close as you can, and I like to leave about 1/8 inch on the inside of the mark. That way it accommodates the thickness of the tubing. That just makes it easier to weld everything up. So I do the rough cut with the angle grinder, and then just take a flap disc and round everything out, smooth up the edges. I don't know if you can see it down inside the pipe there, but works out pretty well. As far as the hole saw I used, I went and got one of these Lennox 2-inch, made in the USA, kind of. But I got this because I've got this set of Milwaukee's that I picked up a while back, and I really don't like them. I tried using the 2-inch, but with the way the teeth are on these, it ended up cutting quite a bit oversized. And these really are quite grabby. I think they'd be okay in a drill press or something where you got a bit more control, but as far as using with a hand drill, you kind of want to get away on you. So this tooth pattern here is a bit more what I'm used to, and worked a little better, and the hole is a nice snug fit. I did a test piece with one of these. It ended up being quite sloppy, and it would have been a bit of a hassle to weld that up. And nobody likes a sloppy hole. Or maybe you do, I don't know, I won't judge. Maybe that's why Milwaukee calls them hole dozers. Like a big old D9. That's a bulldozer, not something else. So I contemplated just having a solid pipe between, but just for the sake of maintenance down the road, I did add a stainless steel band clamp here, just so we can split these pipes if we need to. Makes life a little easier. All right, so this is how it looks on the truck. I opted to follow the trans cross member and center everything up in between that. This gives me the most amount of clearance, and I could still probably access the transmission mount bolts if I need to, but the other option was to go in front of it and be under the transmission pan, which I considered, but you're more often going to be pulling that pan to do filter changes, and I wanted to keep the heat away from that as much as possible. So I came back a little bit, everything should be fine there, and gives us lots of clearance. So I'm pretty happy with how all that fits up. I've just got everything roughly mocked up again here. I think we'll go ahead and loosely clamp these mufflers on and see which ones we like best. And then once we make our decision, we'll drop the H-pipe down with the mufflers, weld them up, and then I'm just going to clamp the extensions that we made that pass through the cross members there. That way I can split those, be able to drop everything down as an assembly. So let's try out some mufflers and see which ones we like best. Well, I gotta say, I'm a bit surprised by that. I thought for sure we'd have a pretty significant difference between these two, but I don't know if you can tell on camera there, it's pretty subtle. The only difference I noticed is the thrush is a little bit more on the tinny side. It's got a bit more rasp to it. Definitely got a bit more vintage sound. These original 40s don't sound the way I remember them. These ones sound a lot like the Super 44s that came off this truck, a little bit deeper. Flowmaster's here. It's quite a bit thicker case. If you can hear it here, pretty dull sounding. Whereas the Thrush are quite hollow in comparison. And the reason for that is, if you can see it there, the Flowmaster's got quite a bit thicker case. So I think that's something to take into consideration. The Flowmasters are obviously going to last a bit longer. And because of that thinner material, it also means there's a bit of a weight difference between the two. We throw the Thrush on the scale, we're just a little over 8 pounds. If you're wondering why I got a scale, let me tell you, this hobby ain't cheap. Gotta afford truck parts somehow. And if we throw the Flowmaster on the scale, we're almost exactly a pound heavier, just over 9 pounds. So I'm a bit torn at the moment. I'm not too sure which way I'm gonna go. So I'm gonna think about that while I go ahead, get under the truck here and finish up the last little bits of heat insulation that I need to do, tidy up some wiring, and then make the final decision and weld them in. So before I went to bolt everything up here, I just want to double check the transmission mount before we put that H-pipe under it. And the original one here, it's not in bad shape, but it's definitely not in the greatest shape either. So I decided to grab one of these from Energy Suspension. That's part number there. And this will hopefully last a little longer, and if we throw this in now, we won't have to worry about it later on down the road. So I'm going to go ahead and get this installed, and then we can bolt up the exhaust. All right, well, we got her back on the ground. I got the trans mount swapped out. That was pretty easy. It came out well, and the new one's going even easier. And then I got our shock swapped out in the front. Got the new KYBs in there. Got these old Moreaus taken out because they don't do nothing no more. So it should ride a little better. I just got the rears swapped out. But I'll jack up the back end here now and get that stuff sorted out. So the big question is, which ones do we go with? Well, it's back and forth quite a bit. I've run Flowmasters on just about everything I've had. But these Thrush, you know, wanted to give them a shot. So we did. And the reason why I went with the Thrush, simply because I never run them before. So I think I'm gonna give them a shot. These two here were pretty close. We'll try these for a couple months, see what we think of them. And we can always change our minds. If I do stick with the Thrush, then I'll just get rid of these Flowmasters or maybe throw them on the 68 F100. Gonna try and get some insurance on this thing in the next week. The weather's finally gotten decent here. It was warm and sunny yesterday, so we'll be ready to cruise. So I got a few more things to dial in on this truck, but we'll see that in the next video. But for now, I think I'm just gonna fire this up, move it outside, let it warm up, and let the crappy paint burn off those headers. It's probably gonna stink for quite a while like the other one. So as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.